They laughed when the obese bride fell off the wagon, until the rancher lifted her and said, "You're safe now." Dead River, Wyoming Territory, spring of 1881. The wind rolled over the hill outside the town like it had something cruel to say. It carried the laughter of 200 townsfolk gathered on the ridge for what was whispered about all week: the fattest bride Dead River's ever seen, marrying for land, not love. The hill was thick with wild grass and judgment. Chairs were set in crooked rows, but no one sat. They all stood, hands on hips or arms crossed, waiting for the sideshow they had come to witness. They did not bring flowers. They brought smirks. At the crest of the hill stood Sam Crane, arms folded, gold tooth glinting in the sun. The local mine boss, dressed like a gentleman, but looking like a man who never said thank you and never meant I do. He tipped his hat to the crowd, soaking in the moment like he owned it. And maybe, to him, he did. The wagon approached, pulled by a weary-looking mule, creaking under the weight of its passenger. Miriam Boyd sat stiffly inside, hands clenched over a bouquet of daisies that had started to wilt. Her dress was tight across her chest, too many seams doing too much work. Her cheeks were red, but not with joy. She smiled, small and shaky, like a girl trying to believe she still had a choice. As the wagon reached the edge of the flattened grass, the left wheel sank. Soft earth, careless planning, maybe fate. The mule brayed, jolting forward. Miriam slipped. First came the scream, then the silence, then the laughter. Her body hit the ground hard, rolling once, then settling with her arms awkwardly beneath her. Her white dress tore at the hem, muddied with brown and green. Her veil snagged on the wagon spoke, pulling her head back before it snapped free. Gasps turned to guffaws. A boy shouted, "She cracked the hill!" Another voice echoed, "That's one way to make an entrance." Miriam lay still. Her eyes were open, but she did not move to get up. Her mouth trembled. Her bouquet lay beside her, crushed like a joke that went too far. Sam Crane did not move. He took a single step forward, then stopped. His face hardened as though embarrassed. He adjusted his vest, looked to the crowd, and said nothing. That was when someone stepped out of the crowd. He did not wear a suit or Sunday hat. He wore trail dust and a plain shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow, revealing arms used to work. Jack Holloway, the rancher from north of the valley. A man not seen much in town, unless there were cattle to buy or a saddle to repair. He crossed the hilltop without hurry. The crowd quieted, unsure. Jack knelt beside Miriam, whose breath was now quick and shallow. He shrugged off his long canvas coat and draped it over her legs, shielding what the torn dress could not. Then he slipped his arms under her. She gasped, "Do not, please." But he lifted her anyway, effortlessly, carefully, as if she weighed nothing more than dignity. "You're safe now," he whispered. Then he turned to the crowd, holding her as if she were made of glass and fire. "She ain't a joke," he said, his voice carried clean, with no need to shout. "She's mine." For the first time that morning, no one laughed. Jack Holloway did not wait for applause. With Miriam in his arms, he carried her down the slope, past the stunned crowd, past Sam Crane's frozen smirk. No one dared stop him. He helped her onto his dun gelding, swung into the saddle behind her, and spurred the horse toward the trees west of town, toward safety, or at least distance. But Sam Crane did not like losing, and certainly not in front of a laughing crowd. By the time Jack and Miriam reached the old three-way fork outside town, two riders blocked the path. They were not townsmen. They were hired muscle. One tall and rail-thin, the other thick as a tree stump. Wade Cutter and Lyle Gentry, men known for breaking knees and fixing elections. "Well now," Wade said, easing his horse closer, "the runaway bride and her knight in dirty denim." Lyle cracked his knuckles, resting a hand on the pistol at his hip. "Boss says you're takin' what ain't yours, Holloway." "She is not his to take," Jack replied, voice low. "Move aside." Lyle sneered. "That piece of paper she signed, marriage or sale, depends how you read it, and Sam reads it one way." Then tell him to learn to read better, Miriam snapped. Wade laughed. Big words from a woman who just fell off a wagon. Miriam's fingers curled around the saddle horn. Jack shifted slightly, ready. Lyle leaned forward, spitting to the side. Hand her over, Holloway, or give up the North Ridge. Your land's part of this now. Jack's eyes narrowed. I'm not trading soil or souls today. Suddenly, Miriam twisted in the saddle. Without warning, she snatched a long stick from the firewood bundle tied behind them. A thick branch used for hauling, swung it with all her weight, and cracked it across Lyle's shoulder. He cried out, nearly falling from his horse. Jack moved at once. He spurred the gelding forward, turning the beast sideways and lashing his riding crop across Wade's wrist, sending the man's pistol flying. Chaos erupted. Wade reached for his reins, too late. Jack's horse reared, hooves flashing. Lyle staggered back, cursing, one hand on his shoulder. Miriam raised the stick again. Try it, one more insult, see what you get. The two men hesitated, stunned, not by her size, but by her fury. I'm not a joke, Miriam said, her voice ringing through the trees. Not yours, not anyone's. Jack reached back, took the reins tight. Hold on. They galloped past the men, into the trees, disappearing down the path toward the ravine. Hooves thundered. Dust rose. Shouts faded. Behind them, Wade nursed his wrist. Lyle cursed and spat blood. Sam Crane arrived moments later, red-faced and breathless. He stared at the dust trail with pure venom in his eyes. Go after them, he growled. Bring them back, or don't come back at all. But by then, Jack and Miriam were gone, vanished into pine and shadow, together on a horse not meant for fairy tales, but for flight. Deep in the woods, hours after the chase, the sun dipped low, brushing the treetops in burnt orange. Jack led the horse into a grove where a hunting shack leaned against itself like an old man with bad knees, weather-worn planks, a sagging roof, but shelter all the same. He helped Miriam down. She winced, her ankle stiff, but said nothing. Inside, dust hung in the air like old memories. A broken stool, a shattered lantern, one blanket in the corner. Jack moved wordlessly. He gathered dead branches, cleared a space in the hearth, and coaxed a small fire to life. The orange glow cast long shadows on the walls, flickering like stories waiting to be told. Miriam sat near the fire, legs curled beneath her, the remains of her torn wedding dress pooled around her like a wilted flower. She pulled a sewing kit from the lining of her skirt, habit from a life that did not expect kindness, and began to mend the fabric, stitch by careful stitch. The only sounds: fire crackling, wood settling, and breath, slow and uneven, from two people who had run too far, too fast. Jack placed a chunk of log on the floor beside her, brushed it clean with his sleeve, and nodded. For your feet, he said simply. She blinked, then tucked her boots onto the log with a tired nod of thanks. Silence again, not empty, just full of everything unspoken. After a while, Miriam spoke. When I was little, she began, eyes on her needle, I used to play bride. Took Mama's curtains, tied them around my head like a veil. I'd marry invisible men behind the chicken coop. Jack chuckled softly. She continued, Back then, I thought being a bride meant someone looked at you like you were the only thing that made sense. She paused, thread trembling between her fingers. Not like today, not like being sold for land and laughed off a wagon. Jack sat on the floor across from her, legs stretched out, palms flat on the dusty boards. I used to wish someone look at me, he said, and not ask about how many acres I owned, or how much cattle I had left to trade. Their eyes met, not in pity, in recognition. You're not what they say, Jack added. And you? She asked. I'm not what they expect. The fire popped between them. A pine branch released a little spark. Miriam tied the last knot in her thread. The rip on her dress would never disappear, but it was closed now, like a wound that could finally scar. She looked up. No one's ever helped me up before, she said. Not like that. Not without expecting something after. Jack didn't answer. He didn't have to. He reached into his coat, pulled out a small tin, and handed it to her. Inside, honey lozenges wrapped in wax paper. "For your throat," he said. "All that yelling." Miriam laughed for the first time. It was quiet and cracked, but it was hers. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, like it had nothing left to say. Inside, they sat beside the fire, not touching, not speaking. But slowly, the silence between them softened, not empty now. Full, warm, alive. The sun hadn't yet burned through the morning fog when Jack and Miriam reached a small roadside town nestled near the edge of the woods. It was no more than a sawmill, a trading post, and a few squat buildings painted in yesterday's colors. They tied their horse behind the store and stepped inside the general store, bell jingling soft over the door. Miriam walked slow. Her dress was patched from the night before, her hands rough with dust. She didn't say a word as Jack picked out coffee beans, jerky, a tin of beans, and a cloth sack of oats. Then she stopped. By the front door, tacked crooked to the wood frame, hung a single copy of the Dead River Weekly. The headline read, "Cow Bride Escapes, Wanted with Her Rancher Lover." Below it, a grainy image of her, mouth open mid-fall, dress torn, face streaked with mud. Miriam didn't speak. She reached out, slow and deliberate, and pulled the paper free. She folded it once, then again, until it fit into her palm like something broken and private. "They don't know," she murmured. "They don't know I raised 50 hens by hand after Daddy died, that I sold eggs door to door to keep the farm, that I bartered feed with Reverend Kane's wife and boiled water for a year because the pump broke." She looked up at Jack. "But they'll remember the mud, always the mud." Jack didn't speak. He stepped outside, reached into his saddlebag, and pulled out a small, square piece of polished metal, a shaving mirror, cracked in one corner. He handed it to her. "Clean your face," he said gently. "They see what they want. I see who I'm with." Her hands trembled slightly as she wiped her cheeks. Then she folded the mirror and tucked it into her apron. They didn't linger. But halfway down the dirt road out of town, Jack glanced behind them. 3 riders. Dust trails. Long guns. He muttered under his breath, "Sam hired bounty men." Miriam looked back too. "What do we do?" "We don't fight," Jack said. "We vanish." He snapped the reins. The horse charged forward. Trees blurred past. Wind slapped Miriam's veil as she clung to his waist. A gunshot cracked behind them, loud, clean. A branch exploded to their left. "Down." Jack veered right, toward a half-forgotten path veiled by brush. "Hold tight." The woods thickened. Jack ducked low, one hand guiding the reins, the other snapping branches into the trail behind to mask their tracks. "Keep watch for a gully, on the left," he called. When the drop came, it was sharp and full of loose shale.